I have a little bit of information about me, so who's here talking with you today. My name, like she said, is Kelly Guerrero. I own Home Pro Coaching and helping service pros become profitable. That's my thing. That's what I do. We did have a landscaping company in Parrish, Florida that I did sell. So today what we're going to do, we already are done the welcome and introductions. Why knowing your number changes everything. The 5 metrics that every service pro must master. And then we have a cheat sheet. If you haven't already, you can go onto my website. It is homeprocoaching.com/free download and download that. It is a numbers worksheet. So, all right, let's get into it. The reality is that so many of us in the service business are struggling, right? Out there day in and day out. And it feels like you're just treading water. The stress of not knowing where you truly stand financially or feeling like your efforts aren't translating into real profit it's exhausting. But it doesn't have to be this way. The feeling of being busy but broke stops when you understand what numbers are actually telling you. Let's dig in and get that changed. So just some statistics I pulled together, right? 83% of small businesses make less than $100,000 per year in net profit. Think about that. Most are not generating significant profit for their owners, even after all their hard work. And it directly impacts their personal lives because 49% of small business owners say that they're living paycheck to paycheck. Even more concerning, 38% say they don't even pay themselves a regular salary at all. So this goes back to net profit. If you don't pay yourself consistently, then you don't have a business that's truly serving you. You're working for your business, but your business is just not working for you. And then a big part of the problem is that 60% don't feel confident in the understanding of their business finances, and that's from Intuit. And these numbers are why I do what I do. They confirm that if you're feeling this way, you're not alone. They show us where our biggest pain points are and what we need to address. So let's get into it. By understanding these 5 metrics, you'll be able to price with confidence. No more guessing if you're charging enough or leaving money on the table. You'll know your value. You'll avoid burnout. You'll stop chasing new jobs just to stay afloat. You'll work smarter, not harder. And then when you have clear data, you can react quickly and strategically so you can make smarter, faster business decisions and then actually pay yourself, which that's the whole point of having a business, isn't it? So we can get ourselves paid. So what are these 5 numbers, these 5 metrics that you need to know? They are revenue per job, gross profit margin, percent of labor as revenue, or labor as percent of revenue rather, close rates, and net profits. Did you know that your revenue alone doesn't tell you if you're profitable? This is one of the biggest misconceptions that I encounter is the ideal that a high revenue equals a healthy, profitable business. You might be bringing in a lot of money, constantly busy, getting new clients. But as we saw from those statistics, that doesn't mean you're actually making money or paying yourself properly. Revenue alone doesn't tell you if you're profitable. It just tells you how much money you have coming in the door. It doesn't tell you how much is going out, whether you're efficient at what you're doing. I can tell you from experience from my landscaping business, we hit numbers that looked impressive. For example, in 2022, we did over $937,000 in revenue. That just sounds like wow, right? But the hard truth, we lost $97,000 that year. $97,000 we lost. We were just leaking money out the side. No idea why. So when we really looked at this, it forced us to focus our focus, right? And to focus on why are we losing this money? Where's our profit? So we stopped chasing just more revenue and started watching all of our numbers like a hawk, including especially these 5 metrics. And we changed our processes, all of them, and focused on what we wanted to grow. We lived by the mantra, what you focus on grows. We watched every single job's profitability. And as a result, in 2023, our revenue grew a little bit to $968,000, but this time our profit was just over $10,000. So if you take into consideration, we went from negative 97 to positive 10,000. That's an increase of $106,000 in a year. That showed us the power of understanding our numbers. And then in 2024, we grew to 1.25 million and our profit grew to over 160,000. So it was just making a few tweaks. We didn't fire anybody new. We just changed what we focused on. So focusing solely on revenue, and we're not going to do that. We are, though, going to go ahead and focus on revenue per job. So that's the average income earned per completed job or type of service. So when we talk about the key insight, a $400 job earns the same as 4 $100 jobs. Which one do you want more of? Which one uses less of your time and your crew's time? Which one has fewer chances of callbacks? Often it's the larger, more consolidated job. It's about working smarter, not just harder. The action step here is crucial. Take a look at your last month's revenue divided by the number of jobs that you completed. Which ones are worth it? And then you strategically are able to shape your business to maximize profit, not just volume. Let me give you a real world example. Okay. Worked with a client who has a detailing business, right? And she was saying yes to everything: basic washes, interior vacuums, quick $25 touch-ups, or just a wash and go. They identified that the $400 full detail package included shampooing, paint correction, and wax, was actually her most profitable service by far. Not only did it pay more, but it only took twice the time of the $100 jobs, for example. And it didn't require jumping neighborhoods all day long. So she could stay at one person's house. She's saving time, she's saving resources of traveling back and forth, and she's making more profit. So by shifting that, and that's where she decided to marketing dollars, cut out all of that low dollar noise, even saying, no, I'm sorry, we don't offer that. Let me tell you somebody who's getting started who might be able to do a quick wash for you or a quick vacuum for you or something like that. That makes a huge difference when you're focused on the more profitable services. So next up, we have gross profit margin. So this is absolutely fundamental. And frankly, it's where many businesses go wrong without even realizing it. Look at what it is, okay? Pretty straightforward. It is your revenue minus your direct costs, materials and labors. Now, this does not include your overhead, your office people, your advertising, etc. So those come later. What matters, if you don't have a gross profit, you'll never have a net profit. So this is extremely important. And it's a really good top line number that you can look at on an ongoing basis. Check and see the health of your business, right? The key insight here: undercharging happens when you skip this math. Let me explain. Without knowing your gross profit, you're essentially guessing what you need to be charging. You might feel busy, but if your gross margin is too low, you're setting yourself up to just tread water or even lose money once we factor in the overhead. So the action step is depending on how many services you have. I know some businesses have a lot more services than others. Top 3 services and start tracking this. Just start with 3 and check it month over month. Even go back to the beginning of this year and check and see, okay, you do January, February, March, April, May, and kind of look and see where you're at with that. So another real world example, how does that work? Well, a cleaning business was charging flat rates, but they didn't calculate their material and labor costs. So let's say you have a cleaning business and don't have a process where everyone has the same thing in their cleaning supplies, right? So you just let each person buy the supplies they like to use, their bags, their vacuum cleaners, their have you. Pricing may not then align with what your gross profit number is, your number at the top. So by charging the flat rates, you think you're competitive and doing well, but this client hadn't actually sat down and calculated their direct costs, materials for each job, the exact labor hours. Their gross margin was 18%. Now she tracks her costs monthly and her average margin is up to 46%. So what we did is we standardized their supply kits, added some processes to keep the time efficiency on the job as good as we possibly could, get things as standardized as possible so that you're saving money on materials and saving money on labor. So what is a healthy gross profit margin? It depends. For some businesses, it's higher than others. Cleaning services, you want to look at it. Now, this is gross before all the other expenses. Now, keep that in mind. So you want a target range of 50 to 70%. Lawn care and landscaping, 40 to 60%. Handyman, 40 to 60, pressure washing, etc. I'd say mobile detailing would fit into here as well. Somewhere between 50 to 70. If you're under 30, it's most often either a pricing issue or a waste problem. You may have materials that aren't being used adequately and being thrown away instead of being brought back to your shop for the next day's work or for the next month's work or what that looks like for your business. So how do you fix it? That big thing, right? That's the thing that matters. That's great to have this information, but how do you fix it? Number one, adjust your pricing. Ensure that your rates are high enough to cover direct costs and improve the healthy profit for the value delivered. So many times it's a race to the bottom with pricing, right? And we have to, as professionals, be ready to stand up and charge what we're charging and feel confident in that. Yes, I'm not the cheapest person out there. I'm going to charge because I'm professional. We carry these insurances. We use these high quality products, these high quality materials in our work. We show up when we say we're going to show up. We do a good job. Good work is not cheap, and cheap work is not good. Remember that and feel good in charging what you're worth as a business owner. The other side of that coin, you can always charge more and then you optimize your direct costs. Is there a supplier you can get stuff from where it's not as expensive? Can you maybe buy something in bulk? I know personally in our business, we had a Roundup, crazy expensive, especially during COVID, it went through the roof. We started buying it in 50-gallon drums. We had a spot in the shop we could put it and we put it there and the guys would just fill up from there. Maybe a cleaning service. You can buy your liquids in bulk, your cleaning supplies, and you field trade. You can buy, instead of just buying exactly the amount of shims or lumber you need for a job, just buy a whole pallet and take it and put it, if you've got the storage for it, take it and put it somewhere where you've got these things so that you bought it at a discount and then you're able, that just goes right to your bottom line. It goes right to your profit and back into your pocket as the business owner. And that's literally the point of having a business. All right. Next up, labor as percent of revenue. Now, these all kind of together, right? So labor for most of us in the service business, that's the number one expense. That's the highest thing. Now, if this number's out of control, you're bleeding money. A little gross sounding and maybe a little dramatic, but really that's how I see it. If you don't have your labor under control, it's just downhill from there. Now, the target's going to vary by industry. There's no single perfect number. I can't sit here and say, okay, everyone keeps their labor at 45%, your business will be successful. Maybe not. A handyman, they're going to have a lot higher materials cost than a lawn care company that's mowing grass, right? The lawn care company is not going to have the same materials cost that a handyman is going to have when they're buying kitchens and bathrooms and all those types of things. So a handyman there should be less than 30%. But most of the other ones should be somewhere around 50, 55%, less if you can do it, because that just is going to mean, again, more money as the business owner back into your profit margin. Okay. Here you have to do, and all of these steps take action. It's not enough just to sit through a presentation like this and say, okay, I need to know these numbers. No, you need to set aside time each week, each month, depending on what your business looks like, and go through these numbers, dig in, find where they're at, and take a look. So what you want to look at is, what was your total labor cost last month? Divide that by what your total revenue, and use that number to assess if you're in a danger zone. Because these are numbers that are readily available in like your QuickBooks or FreshBooks or whatever kind of bookkeeping system that you use. And it's really easy to just keep an eye on these different metrics and know whether it's time to make a quick little pivot or not, instead of waiting until you can't make payroll, you don't have money for supplies, and you're out of business. So by keeping an eye on these things as you go, it makes a big difference in your business. I see there's a question. Do you calculate labor costs, which is hourly or payroll costs? I would say do the whole thing, because what you're paying your people, your labor costs, that's everything. That's the taxes, that's any benefits that you pay for, overtime, and the entire payroll nut that your business has to crack each month. That's what you want to calculate, because that's what you're paying. Okay, up we have a real life example. So it's straightforward. Handyman company had their payroll up to about 60% of revenue. We broke down the labor for service, and they were doing a bunch of little unprofitable jobs that were dragging the average up. So I think in that particular case, they were doing like baseboards and some interior painting, and people weren't wanting to pay or they weren't charging enough. So this was not a profitable job. So pivot. We're going to focus our energy on the jobs that have a higher profit margin so that we can cover our payroll costs. And so after these tweaks, their new labor rate was set down to 42%, which in their business was sustainable. So you have to consider too, what's sustainable for one business, even in the same industry, right? What's consistent for one cleaning business may not be for the other one. You may have different pricing structure. You may have different employee payment structure. You have some that pay for performance, some that pay hourly. So it may vary. Labor costs your particular company can sustain. That's why it's important to be continuously checking these numbers and staying on top of these numbers so that you know what your individual business can do and what's normal for you, what's profitable for you, and then what's not. It just really helps you become a master of your own business. Next, we come to the close rate. Super important. And this is going to be a lot of plug for Jobber. So if you're not with Jobber currently, forgive me. I'm a fan. Total fan, because Jobber has added all kinds of reporting that really help you drill down into this and just see what you're doing on an ongoing basis. And anything that gives you metrics as like a cute graph or like that on a regular basis when you just log in to manage your business, I'm a fan, 100%. So close rate obviously is the number of estimates that turn into jobs. So how many estimates did you actually close, right? So is it under 40%? You have a quoting problem or a follow-up problem. Is it over 70%? Good, but you might be underpriced. So it's not necessarily alarm bells going off, but time to kind of look at that, okay? If your close rate is consistently below 40%, there's likely, not 100%, likely a problem with your quoting process, or your follow-up system is weak. Are your estimates clear? And sometimes having somebody who's outside of your business or outside of your circle take a look at that for you and give you some honest feedback about how clear cut your estimates are. Somebody that you can trust that's going to give you the opinion. Communicating your value effectively. Are you simply not getting back to people? It happens. We get busy. We have lives. We have children, spouses, etc. And sometimes we don't follow up. Another reason I absolutely love Jobber is because they have the automated follow-ups after a quote that you can set it one time within Jobber, and then it's just following up for you. The best thing back when I had my lawn service was on my Apple Watch. I would get the little notification. Boom, so-and-so accepted their quote. Boom, so-and-so accepted their quote. That was just awesome. And that was because I was using a good CRM system, really just do the follow-up that I didn't want to be having to spend my evenings doing. So now on the flip side, if this close rate is over 70%, you might be underpriced. If everyone's saying yes immediately, you're probably leaving money on the table. Now, if you don't need it and you're good with it, cool, love that for you. However, most of us don't want to leave money on the table. If you can raise your rates, it probably is going to increase your profitability. And this is something that you should absolutely do, at least look at to see what's going on there. So obviously the action step with all of them, start tracking this immediately if you haven't already. If you don't have Jobber, that's okay. You can use whatever system you're using for sending quotes and how many jobs you get. Manually, a spreadsheet, a notebook. There's a million different ways to do it. Just do it, because that's going to open your eyes to really see how your process is and what your business is doing as far as the estimate process. Okay. I work with someone who he was sending about 20 estimates a week, but closing less than 30%. What was happening? He used all kind of technical jargon all over the thing, and people didn't trust it. They didn't trust it because they didn't understand what was being written on his estimate. Now it was a fertilization company, right? And they used all kinds of stuff and they didn't understand what it meant. They want to know, you're going to come once a month and it's going to cost me X amount. Cool. And you're going to show up every month? Done. And people are happy with that. They don't need to know the the vast majority of people don't need to know every technical detail of what you're going to do for their service. So we made some changes, cleaned up his quote format a little bit, added the automated follow-ups through Jobber. Another thing that was really important is to start pre-qualifying the leads. Sometimes we get a lot of phone calls and a lot of people reaching out, and they're just tire kickers, right? They're just out here looking for from everyone, and they're not actually interested in getting the work done. They just want to see the prices so they can talk about who has good prices. So some is a really smart thing to do as well. Okay, we arrive at net profit. To me, all of these things kind of play into the net profit number. This is the ultimate bottom line. This is what's left over after every single expense you have is paid. Not just your direct costs, your overhead, your utilities, your marketing, your insurance, and yes, your own salary too. The why it matters couldn't be clearer, because this is the number that actually pays you as the business owner and keeps your business alive. Sorry, lost a AirPod here. Okay. At profit, your business isn't truly sustainable in the long run. Now, cash in the bank does not equal profit. If you're not tracking this, you're probably underpaying yourself. Let's take a look at last month's total revenue and total expenses. Subtract. That's your true net. Is it 10 to 20%, which is where I'd recommend? That's the goal. If you're not there, that's okay. That's the goal, and we'll get there. If it's under 5%, you got some work to do. Why revenue alone doesn't mean you're winning. I had a client brought in $12,000 a month on paper. In reality, he was broke. Every single dollar went right back out the door. New equipment, saying yes to every client, chasing busy work instead of focusing on jobs that were profitable. He was exhausted and still couldn't get ahead. When we started working together, the first step was getting real about the numbers. We set a target, and it's a target, 15% profit. Figured even if you don't hit it, it's going to be a heck of a lot better than you are right now. So set the high number, stretch yourself a little bit. Sometimes you'll surprise yourself, because I know in his case, he sure did. We set 15% and now he's at 16 to 18% monthly, because he became hyper focused on every single expense. He cut out the money losing jobs, and he raised the rates where the value was solid. Not magic, just making better decisions and smarter decisions. So now he's making a consistent 16 to 18% and keeping what he earns. It's the difference when you stop chasing revenue and start managing a business that actually pays you. So how do you fix low profit? Maybe your profit's at 1%, 2% negative, like mine was. You watch your cost of goods like a hawk. You just, every dollar, you start tracking the expenses. Not to say you got to be a complete jerk with your team, but really hold them accountable and say, okay, we're spending money on this. If you do like cards for your team or orders or whatever, but really start watching those expenses. And that goes back to our discussion on gross profit margin. If you're watching your cost of goods like a hawk, your direct costs, your gross profit's going to be higher. Your net profit's going to be higher. Which is math, doing what math does. It's up your pricing and charge correctly. Don't be afraid to raise the rate. You don't want to be the cheapest guy out there. And if you do, probably being a business owner is not for you, because it's not sustainable. Being the low bidder on a job is just not sustainable. So as we talked about with close rate and gross profit margin, many businesses simply aren't charging enough. You need to price for profitability and not just be the cheapest option. Understand your value, your costs, and price yourself accordingly. And then third, slash the overhead that's bleeding you dry. A lot of times, yes, watching the cost of goods sold is great, but sometimes the costs are the costs and there's not much you can do about that. But you can also watch your overhead expenses, your office rent, admin salaries, subscriptions, insurance. Shop around your insurance, get lower rates. Do you really need Grammarly? Maybe. Depends how much. Maybe ChatGPT is a good option because it's free. Things that not a huge number, but when you add them all together, it can make an impact. It can definitely make an impact. They can be silent killers if they get out of control, my honest opinion. So review every overhead expense on your profit and loss sheet line by line, and ask yourself, do I need this? Is there a more cost-effective way to get this done? Ultimately, remember this: profit doesn't happen by accident. You either build it or you're constantly chasing cash. I had a conversation in Facebook asking, what's the number one problem that you face as a business owner? And cash flow is what was said to me. Cash flow. Well, the reason that people are chasing cash is because they haven't structured their business to make sure they have enough profit to keep them sustained through times when maybe it's not busy as you'd like to have it. Because there's lean times in every business, right? Doesn't matter what kind of business you have. There's months that it's not closing the way you normally do. So this is something you have to intentionally build in, that you have money and you're not stressing the cash flow so much. Remember the numbers back at the beginning with the different percentages? This I can tell you, 100% of successful business owners know their numbers. 100%, not 50%, not 75%. Every single successful service business owner who are truly profitable and have a thriving enterprise know their numbers, period. So today we've walked through 5 crucial metrics: revenue per job, gross profit margin, labor as percent of revenue, your close rate, and then your ultimate bottom line, net profit. Now, these 5 are the foundational bedrock, right? They're the foundation. You have to get these in line first. They're health indicators of your business, and if they're off, everything else becomes a struggle. There are other incredibly important numbers to track as well, things like customer acquisition costs. These are vital for scaling and understanding your marketing. Frankly, you need to align these first 5 numbers first, and then get into the other types of metrics that are also very important if you're trying to scale, especially. Get your house in order and then optimize your business for growth. Beyond these, a successful service business owner also consistently monitors overhead as percent of revenue and a lead conversion rate. How many initial inquiries are turning into estimates? And look at every step of the way of the customer experience. What does that look like for them? And you'll try and optimize it and make it as a positive experience for that customer as you possibly can. All right, time to get into the free printable. Basically, it's just a sheet you can print out. I have this divided into 2 just for the sake of the slide presentation. It is just like a piece of paper that you can print out. And then you sit down with your coffee, no interruptions. Phone is on do not disturb. I would recommend, if you are a person who's in your office and have a lot of interruptions throughout your day and you're not able to get deep work done, go to Starbucks. Excuse me, 1,000%, go to Starbucks, go somewhere, a restaurant, somewhere, a library, and sit down and be able to focus on this without anyone bothering you. So what you're going to want to do first, obviously, month and year at the top for the month that you're tracking. And you can do this electronically too. It's a PDF, so you can do it as a fillable PDF. Month's revenue for whatever month. Usually you go the month before. So if you're downloading this today, you would put in May's numbers in here to take a look, because June obviously is not finished yet. But anyway, write down this month's revenue. This is your total income for the month. Get it from your accounting software, your bank's deposits, depending on how you keep it. Non-sponsored PSA. If you do not have QuickBooks or FreshBooks or some bookkeeping system, what are you doing? I strongly recommend. And if you need help getting that set up, please check out my website. I'd be happy to help you get that set up, because this is just so critical. It's going to be, I would say, depending on the size of your business, whether you're going to track the sales or deposits, right? If you're charging, receiving payment at the time of service, you could track either one. They're probably going to be pretty close to one another. The end of the day, the money going into your bank is the money you can spend. So for me, I'm a show me the bottom line type of gal, right? Track your deposits. How much money went into your bank? How many jobs did you complete? And then use this to calculate your revenue per job. It does get bumpy when bigger clients are late. And talk to me afterwards. I'd be happy to help you with some of that. You want to add the number of jobs completed, your direct costs, if we're going down here, your labor costs, your number of estimates sent, number of jobs won, and your overhead. And then you can add any notes. You have a big client, let's just say, or you have some commercial clients that are late with payments. Make those over in the notes thing so you have an idea. My revenue probably should have been higher, but I'm waiting for these 3 people to pay me. So that's why this number is possibly lower. And to just kind of, while it's fresh in your mind about what happened this month with your money. And this is where you just grab all those numbers, right? This first one. And now here is going to be where you calculate out all these different metrics that we talked about today. Your revenue per job. I have the formula listed right on here. That's why I call it a cheat sheet. So you don't have to try and figure out how to calculate all these things. You just put the numbers at the top, and at the bottom, it tells you, okay, this one divided by this one, and that equals that. Gross profit divided by revenue times 100. That's going to show your margin. Keep in mind, you're going to want it to be somewhere, I would say 50%, 70% is the goal. It's going to depend again on your individual business, your industry, for a lot of these types of things. So there's not hard and fast rules for each individual business, right? Percent of labor as revenue, that's your total labor costs, the taxes that are paid, overtime, all of it. The total that you paid to your team to work for you divided by this month's revenue. And that's going to show you your percent of labor as revenue. Your close rate, your number of jobs won divided by the number of estimates you sent times 100. And then the important one, your net profit. Now, this is available on like a QuickBooks thing as well if you don't need to manually calculate it. But it's nice to have these numbers in the same place. And this is something that you go back and look at each month. So what I would recommend that you do in July, go back and look May and then calculate out June's. And now you're looking at June, what changed? Did we grow? Did we shrink? Is this number higher? Did our profit higher? Did it fall? And that's where you can really kind of a little bit of a detective, right, with your own business and figure out how this all plays together and how it will improve your business. You can find me at homeprocoaching.com. If you need someone to help walk you through this, help you set this up, I'm available. I do have available. You can book right from my website. Need help finding specific materials that you like to track, etc. This is how you can connect to me.
That's great for people to understand that these are all interconnected. They're not silos. The 5 are not
Right.
silos. They all inform each other at the end of the day. We have just over 2 minutes left. So I'm going to give you